Hogstye.
And welcome back to the Hogstye, ladies and gentlemen. I am Steve Thomas, your temporary host. Alex had something to do this afternoon. He's not with us, but fortunately, Jamual is here, so you don't have to just listen to me. Hello, Jamual.
Hello. Another week, another loss for this Washington football team.
At least it was an exciting loss, though.
Yes, we are indeed the kings of moral victories here with the Washington football team. Yes, it was a close one. Shout out to Chase Young for his. We'll get into it. Shout out to Chase Young.
That. I've got lots to say about that last drive.
Yes, so I'm doing all right though, man. I can't complain. This is one of those bad weekends for the life of a gambler. You have your weeks, you have your ups and downs. I told you before the show, this is just not. It's not one of those weeks for me. It's not one of those weeks.
Hey, I'm a big Outkick the Coverage fan, and I don't know if that's your thing or not, but but Clay Travis does gambling picks all the time, and he has a good record, so you ought to check him out for his gambling picks.
If I become desperate, I will do that. I do fairly well against the numbers, stuff like that. I'm fine with those things. I really only look to a small circle for people because as a gambler you don't want your analysis to become watered down or infused with something else and it becomes like you lose yourself. You want to stay true to what you do. Take a little bit of insight versus in terms of outside opinions. Take a little bit of insight from me and then see where that takes you. But
yeah, well, I mean, my advice for Washington gamblers would be always to bet against the spread, but today they pushed, as we've discussed. But normally it's a safe bet to say Washington isn't going to beat the spread.
Yes, correct. It's been ugly for them this year for the most part. But today is a push, and shout out to the people who ended up getting the 3.5 and took Washington. I'm jealous. I had the 3, but we are where we are.
Yeah, because I always put the line in our written game previews, but I grabbed the line like Sunday night, Monday morning, and I don't pay attention to it later in the week. And so I knew it was 3.5. That's why I was asking you about it beforehand. I didn't know it had moved to 3.
I'm upset I missed it, but
okay. Well, let's get into this game here. Yeah, it was another moral victory weekend, like you said. For Washington, that's generally all we get is moral victories. Let's do the stats here first, real quick, before we get into it. Okay.
Yes,
numbers-wise, Alex Smith was 38 for 55, and 55, according to the broadcast team, was a career high in attempts and completions, both. 390 yards, 7.1 yards per attempt, 2 sacks, a quarterback rating of 89.2, and the quarterback rating was held down because he didn't get any touchdown passes, which we'll get into that. Antonio Gibson was the leading rusher, if you want to call it that, 13 for 45. As a team, they were 26 of 89 for 3.4 yards per attempt. But remember that includes Terry McLaurin's jet sweep for 27 yards, and so the running back group was really averaging about 2.5 yards per carry. And we'll get into that. Receiving-wise, Terry McLaurin was the leading receiver for Washington, 7 for 95. Logan Thomas, 4 for 56. Isaiah Wright, 6 for 59. Cam Sims, 4 for 54. Steven Sims, 5 for 46. J.D. McKissick, 7 for 43. Antonio Gibson, 4 for 20. Peyton Barber, 1 for 7. And Jeff Badette actually got into the game, but he was 0 for 0 with 1 target. In terms of the Lions, Matthew Stafford, 24 for 33, 276 yards, 3 touchdowns, quarterback rating of 127.8. Leading rusher on the day for all teams was DeAndre Swift, 16 carries, 81 yards. Adrian Peterson, our old friend, was 4 for 21, average of 5.3 yards per attempt. Marvin Jones was the leading receiver on the day for both teams, 8 for 96. DeAndre Swift, 5 for 68. Marvin Hall, 2 for 61. T.J. Hawkinson, 2 for 13. It goes down from there. In terms of defense, there was only 1 sack on the day. That was Cameron Curl. And the leading tacklers were Curl and Kendall Fuller, who didn't have his best day today. And the sacks for the Lions were Romeo Okwara and Everson Griffin. And then in terms of punting, it was an off day for Old Tress, only 2 punts, 77 yards. So that is stats. Tell you what, let's do things.
Missing one thing.
What? The busted the deep balls that the defense gave up. Is that what you're about to say?
Absolutely not. We're missing the fact that if Dustin Hopkins makes the one field goal that he misses, Washington is actually in position to actually potentially win the game. If not, we're in overtime right now as we're doing this show.
You're right. Dustin Hopkins 2 for 3. He missed the one in the first half that ultimately came back to haunt them.
A layup for most kickers.
Yeah, you're right. Let's do something different here other than just our normal offense defense. We'll get to that. But let's talk about the last Washington drive, because it seems to me that Washington got really, really lucky on this drive. There were 3 big penalties that kept that drive alive. The first pass interference by, Trufant looked bogus to me. Looked like a bogus pass interference call. And they got assistance along the way. But what we saw and what I wanted to mention here, aside from that, Alex Smith really showed that he can drive a team when he wants to. He didn't turn over balls this week, and he really moved the ball up and down the field. At least in the second half, he did. So, thoughts on the very last drive and on Alex Smith's day in general?
All right, so I'll answer the easy one first. Alex Smith's day in general. Truth be told, I really didn't think, even early on, I don't think he had a bad game. Like, talking about the first half, it was more so we couldn't get anything going. And then when you can't get anything going, on top of Detroit running it up essentially in the first half, like you're gonna, like, it's obviously that you have to produce to some degree, but and obviously the 3 points is unacceptable. Just to only score 3 points when you can't keep up against a Detroit Lions team who really isn't necessarily that good defensively, and then their offense is bombs away basically with how they're attacking you, and DeAndre Swift is having a good game. Anyway, point being, overall, I didn't think Alex Smith had a bad game in the first half. And then collectively throughout the entire game, I thought he had a really good game. He used, like I said last week, he uses his running backs to the way that Scott Turner really wanted, or excuse me, that we anticipated the offense to use. I don't know what Scott Turner thinks. I don't know what Scott Turner expects to do here. I'm still trying to figure that out personally. As we move on throughout the weeks, but you have even in one of these plays that was very noticeable. They had 3 running backs in, all 3 of the best their best running backs in. I think it was the first half, maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, like they know what they're doing with their running backs, and Alex Smith knows how to use them. He's not going to hesitate to check down to a playmaker that's in the backfield who can also catch the ball. It's not hard to dump it off to a guy like J.D. McKissick or Antonio Gibson who can at least make one person miss. That's perfectly fine. So I in total, the plays that he made throughout the game, even using his legs at sometimes, it was impressive. And I don't have a negative thing to say about him. What I will say on the last drive, and this one is the quick one, but also requires a little bit more context. Alex Smith led the team down the field, sure. But this is where I also thought, and I noticed it, like when he had the 50 passes, I was like, I made a joke. It wasn't serious, but I'm surprised his arm didn't fall off. It was at one point throughout that drive where the penalty saved them. He had like 5 straight incompletions.
Yeah. And
you can see like it was there. Some of these passes were easy throws, and you just wondered if the steam was falling, like disappearing right then and there. And I think that it was. But the penalties helped him out, and he was able to make some of the better throws towards the tail end to get him in field goal position. But it wasn't the best drive, because without the penalties, obviously 5 straight incompletions, you're not even on the field after the 4th one. So,
well, it's funny you say that, because I think when it comes to older quarterbacks, you kind of have the same problem as a pitcher. I mean, I'm a big baseball fan, Jamal, and
Yeah.
once you get older pitchers up to 90, 100 pitches, it's only the really elite, like the Clayton Kershaws, are the only ones who can push through that. Once they get older, and it's a good point to make that maybe 55 passes, and he was also getting beat up too. He got multiple hits. He took multiple hits in that game. Big hits. They didn't necessarily result in sacks, but he got hit a lot. So combine that with a ton of passes, and you're absolutely right in that. That's kind of why I brought that last drive up. Because I mean that drive got saved by penalties, and God only knows. It will be in a mystery. It'll be like the Bermuda Triangle level of mysteries to me. Why on earth Detroit accepted a penalty when the 3rd and 8 pass failed, and they were going to have 4th and 8 from their 20. And what they do, on the touchdown pass, I'm sorry, a drive beforehand. But why on earth Detroit kept that drive alive by accepting a penalty, I'll never understand. But it's a good point you make. Maybe Alex Smith at his age and body isn't the guy to throw 55 passes.
Yeah, I mean, truth be told, he should. And this is a team statement that I'm making right here. He should have never been put in that position to begin with. And I mean that by they should have played better. The offense should have played better in the first half. The kicker should have made a field goal, a chip shot field goal, essentially for most kickers. The defense shouldn't have gave up 24 points. The way they allowed it, like those touchdowns, the two passing touchdowns that Stafford had, was just unacceptable. So he shouldn't have been put in that position to begin with. To throw 55, 50 plus passes anyway. But when you're in that position, you know that's just gonna be rough. And just imagine, somebody also told me this. I can't remember who. This was years ago, but it just popped up in my head. He threw 55 passes in the game. You're still throwing like 100 before the game starts. so your arm is going through it, regardless of you being a pro quarterback or not. Your arm is going through it, and for you to throw 55 in a game, that's a lot, especially for him.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but if you look at where the passes came from, there were only 3 or 4 carries in the entire second half. By the end of the first half, Washington, he was 16-21 for 315 or 115 net yards. And by the end of the game, there's only 26 runs, which included 2 Alex Smith scrambles. So, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of running to be had in the second half. But, I mean, that was dictated also by the score. What are you going to do when you're down 24-3?
Yeah.
There's not just much, there's just not much to do. There's just not much to do about it. I guess, though, that aside, what we learned, I think, today, to me, is that Alex Smith is and always was the best quarterback on this team. And I do think that if you go all the way back to the Houston game in 2018, if he had not had that awful injury, I don't think this team drafts Dwayne Haskins. I think Smith is probably the starter all this time. Kyle Allen isn't here. It's kind of weird how
Jay Gruden's probably still here.
Well, that may be true. Jake Gruden might have been here. I think, in a weird way, I mentioned this on the game preview when you were out, Jamal. But in a weird way, we've kind of come full circle here. We had Alex Smith signed to probably a way too big a contract. He got hurt. We burned through a first-round draft pick, and now we're back to where we started. 2 years ago. It's just strange. Mm-hmm. It's just really strange. But in terms of offense, I don't think a team can win football games in the NFL on a consistent basis unless you're the Tom Brady-led Patriots. Is about the only example I can think of when you have a running back group that is this bad. They are terrible. At running, McKissick has got his thing with the pass. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about strictly from a running perspective. This running back group has been atrocious all year with the exception of the Cowboy game. And it's, when you've got, 58 yards on, 23 carries? Yeah, 58 yards on 23 carries. You're not going to win games like that. Mm-hmm. I think that's a major emphasis. And I'm sorry to say, Antonio Gibson just isn't it. He's got a role. I love him.
Yeah, I agree.
I love him, and he's going to be a key player on the team, but he is not an every down franchise back, and that's what this team needs more than anything, I think.
I also think that's why they're starting to. I wouldn't say so. When I say decrease, I don't mean like significantly, but they're starting to limit his touches in certain situations because they're putting in McKissick a lot,
Right.
and that's. I mean, it speaks to his development. Like he's just not there yet in certain instances. So in certain situations, and that's the key part for him. That's just holding him back from being a more effective back. It's mainly third down that I'm speaking on in passing situations. If they can't really trust him in that, like it's going to be hard for him to see the field. And I seen some fans complaining about why he wasn't on the field. And I guess they just don't understand. And I can't say like for certain I seen it with my eyes. It's from understanding people who watch the film or what the coaches have said, and that's where I'm getting it from. So yeah, he's just in a situation where he needs to get his stuff together.
Yeah, it can't be emphasized enough that your average running back coming out of college, he's played 3 years at least, a lot of times 4 years, has hundreds of carries, did it in high school, and so he's been playing running back for years. And Antonio had 33 carries in college. Like Bryce Love was up into like 400 something carries, I think, in college, just as an example. And I'm not saying Bryce Love's the answer, but it can't be emphasized enough that he is brand new to this. And he didn't, not only that, but he didn't run a lot of inside gap runs at Memphis either. All of this is totally new to this guy. So they're just going to have to do something about it. I'd like to talk about Cam Sims here for a minute. He's been my favorite project since he's been here. He's come alive in the past 2 games, and it's amazing what he can do when a quarterback can read the field, quickly get rid of the ball, and give him a chance.
About that last thing, what you said is important. More importantly, trust him in spots, and it's a great sight to see. I was a huge fan of him after his preseason in 2018, just seeing what he can bring to the table. The only thing that's really hindered him over the time, like I can't fault him for the injuries that he had. That brought him to the situation that he was in heading into 2020. But the only thing that he's really been bothered with is the inconsistency with the hands, and he's had some route running issues. And that's what people spoke on. So I'm not necessarily. I was never down on Cam. It was more so like I hope he gets his opportunity here, and I'm just glad that it's in his year 3 here with Washington. And if they keep featuring him down these last 8 games, this is prior to today. If they keep featuring him in his last 8 games, and he keeps showing up, this is a serious conversation about him being a solid number 3 option. Because obviously we still need a number 1A or a 1B, whatever one works, but a solid number 3 option here.
Yeah. For those of you who remember what he did at Alabama, he was opposite Calvin Ridley, and Jalen Hurts was his quarterback. Jalen Hurts, certainly when he was at Alabama, was not a passer. He was a runner. He was like Johnny Manziel minus the drugs plus athletic ability. And Hurts is way above Manziel. I'm not using that as comparison, but that's kind of the style of game that Hurts was playing. And Cam in college was a slot receiver. Most of his he didn't run routes hardly ever on passing plays. He was basically he would break out to the flats, or he would sit and wait for a flat pass. That's what he did. And so I think he had a long way to go to learn how to run routes at an NFL level. And it took a couple years for him to do it. So glad to see that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the offensive line here, because my goodness. I'd like to point out here that they gave up what ESPN has it as 8 quarterback hits. And there were a whole bunch of more hurries. We saw injuries-wise, we saw Cornelius Lucas go out. Jamal, I'm not on social media anymore, so I don't know if we ever got an injury update on Lucas or not. But
I could check as you're talking. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Because we had Morgan Moses move over to left tackle, and then David Sharp came in to play right tackle after Lucas went out. Because remember, Christian was inactive. But point here is, this was not a positive day for the offensive line. And a lot of this problem with the running game is exacerbated by the fact that this offensive line is poor and now they're beat up. 8 quarterback hits is a lot. Granted, again, only 2 sacks, but 8 hits and more pressures and more hurries than that. So this is another, and I think it's fair to say that that problem contributed to some of the drives that did not result in scores was because of the pressure on the quarterback. So it's another problem that Washington will have to address in the offseason.
I agree. I truth be told, like for me, I don't necessarily know how bad it was um before Lucas got hurt. I can't tell you how bad it was. I did notice the pressure after he got hurt. But I can't. Honestly speaking, I can't tell you how bad it was before Lucas got injured and they had to rearrange the offensive line. But with that being said, it wasn't that good today. Alex Smith did, to his credit, do the best he could in the situations that he had. Like he was very calm for the most part in the pocket. No, it wasn't like no giddy. I need to get up out of here. I'm nervous type of throws. He had bad throws, but they weren't. I didn't see any as a result of imminent pressure or anything. I seen him stand tall in the pocket, take a couple hits. But with that being said, talking about the offensive line, it worries me. It always has. And we knew how bad it was with Haskins in there. But I think with Smith in there, whose veteran experience can help him out a lot, it's not going to look as bad as it did with Allen and with Haskins. And I think there's varying degrees to how bad it can look. And we knew every single week after Haskins played, we were talking about how terrible this offensive line is. And then it simmered down a little bit with Kyle Allen. And truth be told, the first time that I heard it is when, or heard it about with Alex Smith is when you just brought it up. And I agree with you. I just don't know what it was before Lucas got hurt. I do agree that it wasn't good.
Yeah, and that's my point. And obviously, I mean, look, Smith is what, 15-year veteran? 15, 16 years, whatever it is. And he's a quality player. And, yeah, I'm sure he's not what he used to be, certainly in athleticism and his ability to scramble away, and we saw that today. 10 years ago, he would have been running. He was, for back then, a decade ago, he was an outstanding running quarterback, and he's just not that anymore for the obvious reasons. But it doesn't, the quarterback's handling it better for sure. And we can have another Haskins discussion if you want. I mean, but, all young quarterbacks have go through this, or at least most of them. But anyway,
I'm not interested in no Haskins.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not.
He is where he is at this point. I'm not revisiting the past. Just more so for comparative purposes with all 3 quarterbacks. He was the first one to experience it, and it was not good.
I'd like to point this out.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 53 targets, we've got 15 for, 19, 20, 25. So 25 of them, I think, were to running backs and tight ends, meaning more of them were to wide receivers. Now, if you go back to Alex Smith at Kansas City, he almost at times ignored his wide receivers.
Yeah.
It was a lot of tight ends. It was a lot of running backs, and part of that was personnel-wise. But what I've noticed about Smith today and last week was that he's taken a lot more downfield shots than he used to, and more than the previous 2 Washington quarterbacks did also. And what does that do? It opens up the offense quite a bit. Granted, I mean, the running game is just atrocious for sure, but it sort of softens up the zones. And Detroit played a lot of man today, but it softens up teams when you take downfield shots. And I'm glad to see Alex doing that. And I'm glad to see him using his wide receivers in a way that he didn't at other stops,
Yeah. I completely agree. I think it's interesting, too. This is the one season with the roster that he has at his disposal and the weapons that he has at disposal, there is no reason people should be complaining about the checkdowns. There is no reason. And I know we're talking about receivers here. I'm just speaking more to the point of him being able to utilize everything at his in his toolbox or tool shed. I don't know the word, but he's utilizing everything. Yeah, the toolbox. He's utilizing everything. That's his receivers, his tight ends. Logan Thomas is getting the necessary receptions. He's not being overfed because he does not deserve it. And he's not getting one or two. He's getting somewhere between 4 to 5, and that's fine with me. But he's also like that's fine. And then you get your running backs collectively getting around 10 to 12 targets. And then your receivers are still getting a fair share as well. Primarily, obviously, Terry and Cam. So he's in a good spot in terms of Alex Smith. He's in a good spot in terms of being able to showcase what he has coming off an injury, and also the skills that he still does possess at his age and the injury that he's coming off of. So
yeah,
good for him. I don't know what lies for next season, if he's going to be retained or they're going to take that out that they have to save some money. But he's in a spot where he can continue his career regardless of if it's here or somewhere else.
Yeah, certainly a question for another day, perhaps. So anyway, in conclusion here, in offense, because we got to move to defense, but in offense, it was obviously a tale of two cities, in the words of Charles Dickens. The first half, nothing. Punt, missed field goal, fumble, into half. That was Washington's first half. Just not good. And I don't know what was said at halftime. Oh, so that was the first quarter. Yeah, no, that was the first half. Anyway, I don't know what was said at halftime, but they clearly came alive. It's if they could ever put an entire game together like this, they'd actually start to win. But sad to say,
they
here
can't.
we are.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's right. They can't do it. They're just not good enough. Okay, let's switch over to defense here. I almost don't even know what to say to this defense. It's another 30. Go ahead.
I was gonna say let's just start at the last drive, and then we can work our way back to everything that's happened before that.
Speak on it.
Now, it's not Chase Young's fault that they lost, but in that moment, in that one moment, you had an opportunity to play team ball, and you did everything right up until the moment you wanted to. Now, I think it was a petty call, but you had done everything right up until the moment you wanted to put your hands on Matt Stafford. I think, and this is a part of the defensive lineman where I feel like this happens all throughout the league, but you get frustrated that you're not getting to the quarterback. Like, you just get frustrated. You're getting blocked maybe, or you're not having a good game, and then you have that one moment where it's just you and that quarterback. You don't care if he throws the ball or not. You're going to put your hands on him. And time again, like, people do this all the time. And they just need to put their hands on the quarterback to make it seem like they're there. And I feel like Chase Young was in a spot where he didn't care about the situation. He wanted to put his hands on Matt Stafford. And it turns out that the force that he used behind his shove was enough for the ref to see it and call a flag. Regardless of if I think it was petty, but at the same time, you had plenty of time to think between the ball being out and you touching them that it was not worth it. You had time to think that, and with that being said, you lose. They gained 15 yards because of that.
It was a third down.
Yeah, and it was a third down. You gained 15 yards because of that. And then the very next play, I feel like I was telling a friend of mine, Montel, Montel, from All 32. I was telling Montel, you're in a situation where now a lot of people see them playing off coverage, and clearly that's what they did, but I also think that there was confusion there. I don't think they intentionally meant to play off coverage in a situation where they knew Prater had a leg and they knew they didn't need the first down or even the entire... Yeah, they didn't need the first down to try and win the game. They just needed a few more yards to get them in range. And I think that's where the confusion ended up hurting whoever the cornerback was. I don't remember anymore, because he was frustrated as soon as the pass was completed. He knew that he was trying to communicate something, and it was just not getting there with whoever he was talking to. And that's where they end up blowing the game. They had plenty of time if Chase Young didn't draw the personal foul, but now they're in a situation where they can't afford any yards and they give up 6 or 7, whatever it was.
Yeah, listen, I mean, it certainly was a ticky-tacky call, but that's the NFL, people. I mean, I don't know if the fans, because again, I'm not on Twitter anymore, but I don't know if the fans are complaining about the call or not, but the fact of the matter is the NFL is going to call that every time against quarterbacks, especially high-profile quarterbacks like Matthew Stafford. So, yes, it was ticky-tacky, but you should have known that was going to get called. It's a brain fart, and it ended up costing the team. It kept a drive alive. Obviously they probably would have. Obviously they would have. I would assume have gone for it, but maybe they would have just run the clock out at that point, and gone into overtime. So it definitely cost the team. Chase Young did not have his best game today. The entire defense didn't have his best game today. I don't think anybody really stuck out. They let DeAndre Swift just run all over them.
Yeah.
In the both in the run, he was averaging over 5 yards a carry, and he also had another 5 receptions for 68 yards. And by the way, who else came in and did a pretty good job in relief? Old friend Adrian Peterson. And I would like to point out here at this moment that I think the fear amongst the fan base was that Adrian would not have accepted or liked a supporting role in Washington. What is he doing in Detroit? Exactly that. He's doing well at it, and he's not complaining as far as I've ever heard. He came in and had 4 carries, 21 yards, and didn't he have another reception? Yeah, he had another reception for 9 yards. What did Peyton Barber do? 2 for 7. 2 for 7. Yeah, it's just it's water under the bridge. It doesn't matter now, but it just infuriates me to no end that AP is not our backup running back at least. But in terms of defense, I hope this ends any talk about Washington having the best pass defense in the NFL. They mentioned it on the broadcast, and yes, because of basically a fluke of bye week and playing the Dallas Cowboys, they have given up prior to today the least amount of yards in the NFL. That doesn't mean they're anywhere close to the best pass defense. What did we see today? 55-yard touchdown to Marvin Hall. For one.
another explosive play.
Exactly right. And you've been harping on that every week, Jamal. They've given up tons and tons of explosive plays. So let's put this to rest. This defense is not anywhere near in the ballpark of best in the NFL at all. We saw again today mix-ups in coverages that resulted in touchdowns. Mix up in coverages. We saw Kendall Fuller bite on on the 55-yard touchdown. Kendall Fuller bit on the pump fake. Aqib Talib pointed that out. That got him all full mucks, and that's what sprung Marvin Hall. So I thought the secondary had sort of more of the same, only this time they faced a quarterback who is good enough to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I agree. And truth be told, I really don't. I can't really follow that up with anything. Like you spoke on it. I've been speaking on it. I don't want it to be repetitive, but we also have 7 more weeks to go. So it's probably going to be repetitive. But yeah, I don't have much else to say about that. It's unfortunate, but I mean, if you call a lot of people look at the stats and call this defense like they say that we're sleeping on the side that we're on. They say that we're sleeping and we're the ones that don't see how good this defense could be. All right, well, guess what? They're not good now. But the stats will tell you otherwise. But if you're looking at the game, you know better, and you should know better. And I think it's just interesting that people bark louder after a win. It's only been 2 wins so far, but after every win, they think that the defense is actually better than what they really are, and that's just. I was part of that the first week, but then I started seeing more and more as the weeks go along, and you understand things a little bit better. And this is just who they are. It's not good.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The stats don't always tell the tale, people. They don't. This defense has given up more than 30 points 5 out of, what are we at, 9 games? 5 out of 9 games. Now, and the 3 games that didn't were all NFC East teams, by the way. The Eagles, the Giants, and the Cowboys. And the Cowboys are horrible. at least we're horrible in that game. So it's just not a good defense. I mean, they gave up 5 yards a carry, like we said, to Swift and Peterson both. Receiving wise, DeAndre, they were even missing their number one receiver, by the way, and Wayne Galladay wasn't even on the field. He was inactive for injury purposes. So, Marvin Jones, Marvin Hall, Hawkinson, these guys aren't big names. Hawkinson is a good tight end, and they held him.
I like Hawkinson.
Yeah, I didn't mean to throw Hawkinson into that.
And Marvin Jones, excuse me.
Yeah, but I mean, are these guys all pros? No. They've got a good quarterback in Stafford, who, while he's not what he was in his prime, he's still an outstanding quarterback.
Correct.
He's got a big time arm. He's seen everything, and he's really the best quarterback they've faced all year. And this is the result, because these weren't cheap points, by the way, folks. This isn't like interceptions and fumbles in the red zone and all that stuff. These were long drives that they ran up and down the field on Washington all day long.
Yeah, if you expecting me to say something, I ain't got nothing for you.
I don't expect you to disagree with me.
I'm about to say I completely agree. There's nothing I want to add. Who do we play next week? We got the Bengals.
Yeah.
We have the Bengals at home. You're in a position there where you're also, barring, well, it depends if Joe Mixon is playing or not. But you got a good young quarterback, but you also have a very good, talented running back who can do it all. He is what they want Antonio Gibson to be. He is that, and you're going to see a lot from them as well. And if he can run the ball, you're looking at a 4-game a period where Ron Rivera stated they needed to win majority. At least 3 out of 4, if not all 4 of the 4 upcoming games between New York, Dallas, New York, Detroit, Cincy, and then Dallas again. Obviously, you're 1-2. You're 1-2, and then you're going against a Bengals team who's going to be in a position where they're talented enough offensively to stay in the game. So it's going to be rough.
Yeah. Joe Burrow, we can get into this on our game preview show. Burrow's been much better than I thought he would be for a rookie. 67% completions, quarterback rating over 90, not throwing a lot of interceptions. It's not going to be – this isn't your, grandpa's Bengals or whatever the saying is. I just – today, there's just no redeeming qualities about this defense today that I can see at all. Really, the pass rush wasn't there. They knew that they had an immobile statue, basically, in Matthew Stafford. We told you in the game preview a key to the game was to get home. Get home. They've at times had decent pass rush this year and not quite gotten home. And today they didn't even really make Matthew Stafford sweat much. With the exception of the Cameron Curl safety blitz there, and that was that first half. They really didn't even touch him. One quarterback hit on the day, and that was Curl on the sack. It's more mediocrity from this defensive front.
Yeah. Speaking of that blitz, I kind of like how I really like Aqib Talib on the call. I relate to him because he's just speaking to us like in a more informal manner. And I really like that. It doesn't have to be like you don't have to do everything formally. It can be you can have your personality there while you're talking to us and breaking down the game. With that being said, he also knows what he's talking about. And one of the things that he mentioned was how on third down you see Jack Del Rio like to do a lot of zone blitzing on third downs, and where the blitz came. When they got the sack is where that zone blitz came. And my only question is, I would have to look at the game, and so would all of us. I just want to know, like, how come we weren't getting the same pressure before through zone blitzing? Like, if they weren't doing it, I would like to know why they weren't doing it earlier, as opposed to when they really needed it. You don't have to not hold your hand until or hide your hand until that very moment. You can do it throughout the game sporadically. So I just want to know like what went into that.
It's a good question. It is, and I liked Akib too. I thought he was a little bit nervous in the beginning. It was his first game in the booth, but he really warmed up to it nicely, and it was sort of a conversation. And the one thing I thought was really great, if you notice this, the play-by-play guy, whose name is escaping me, said, "Okay, Akib, explain coverages," and he did that better in 5 seconds than anybody else ever has. Because I've studied these defenses, and it took a while for me to learn, what's cover 0 and cover 1, and Akib said, "Look, it's how many people are deep."
Yeah.
It's, and I think people can think of it that way. It was so simple. So I did feel like Akib was a little bit more conversational about it. I liked what he did. I liked him in the booth, for sure. He'll get more used to it and kind of be more, again, I thought he was a little bit nervous in the beginning, but he was good. But anyway, back to the defense. I just thought there was zero redeeming qualities for this defense at all today. Because the Lions aren't that good, okay? They really aren't. They're deep. Their offense is average. They're not doing anything special. I'm not trying to fool anybody.
They're actually known for doing what they did against us, and that's allowing teams to come back into the game. Yeah. we should have won it.
Yeah, a better team would have won this game. A better team than Washington would have won this game. They don't have a ton of elite talent, beyond Stafford on this team. They have some good players, certainly, but this is not like the Ravens, or the Kansas City Chiefs or somebody. It's the Detroit Lions, and they ran up 30. So I don't even know what to say about this defense. So, unless you have anything else to say about the defense, I'd say let's wrap it up, and I'm going to make us do game balls. Because
you know what time it is. It's time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Wrap it up.
I love the game ball thing because it's just fun having to go through this exercise sometimes. Tell you what, Jamal, you start.
All right, so game ball offensively, I'm going to go Alex Smith. Like I said, I hinted to earlier, I really didn't think he had a bad game in the first half either. Just unfortunate situations for him. And overall, I thought he had a good game. So Alex Smith is my game ball. Defensively, oh Jesus Christ!
I told you it's tough.
Give me 2 seconds, man.
All right.
Defensive game ball. Oh my goodness. How about this? How about you give your offensive player the game, and then I go back to defense.
Fine. I was going to go Smith as well on offense. You don't pass for a career high of yardage and passing, and no interceptions and not get a game ball from me. So, and he had no help in his running game. So clearly, Alex Smith. And look, the defensive game ball is tough, man. I mean, because the usual suspects aren't worthy. I'll just talk through this to give you a chance to think, because I'm thinking too.
I got mine.
Kendall Fuller blew it on the deep ball. Chase Young didn't have a good game. Pierre Lewis got that, got the penalty there with the helmet-to-helmet contact. So, oh man, that's tough.
Yeah, I got mine.
Okay, go ahead, and I'll think about mine some more.
Yeah, so mine is actually a unique twist. I'm going to go ahead and give it to Chase Young.
Really?
Yes, because Washington is in need of a young quarterback, a young rookie quarterback, and in the worst way, we need a franchise quarterback. I don't think Alex Smith is going to be here for much longer. Even if he does get extended or he does stay along for one more season, Washington needs to draft a quarterback this year. And with Chase Young, with the roughing the passer, giving Detroit another opportunity, an easier opportunity to win the game. Without him, we're not still with 2 wins. We're 2-7, one step closer to a top 5 draft pick, maybe even top 3. So shout out to Chase Young. He gets the
Chase Young helped the race to the bottom. I like it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I know what I'm gonna give my defensive game ball to DeAndre Swift for running all up and down the Redskins all day long.
And I thought about that.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift, and it's not only that, but I think Jack Del Rio needs to present the game ball to him. So Jack Del Rio needs to walk down to the Lions locker room and hand DeAndre Swift the defensive
Hey man,
game
you did
ball.
a hell of a job.
He did.
Shout out to you.
There you go. All right, folks. So that's all for this show. Listen, it was an exciting game at least. At least you had fun watching the game. At least you didn't drift off into the red zone or whatever, during the second half. So there's that. At least you had fun.
Yep.
So we will be back on our regular Thursday with the Cincinnati Bengals game preview. So for Jamal, I'm Steve, and we will see you next time.
Peace.